Hello, in this video I'm going to be talking about a recent experiment that I did on myself, testing cold ice water facials right before bed and their impact on my deep sleep. So what is an ice water facial? Well, an ice water facial is where you submerge your face in a bowl of ice water for a certain amount of minutes. So why would you do that? Well, studies and anecdotal evidence suggests that any type of cold thermogenesis before bed is going to increase your percent of deep sleep that you get. And deep sleep is important because it's a stage of sleep during which your body releases anabolic hormones like testosterone and human growth hormone. And it generally declines with age. So younger people have more deep sleep, whereas older individuals tend to have less and less each year. It's also the stage of sleep that's most responsible for restoring your body versus REM sleep, which is kind of more the stage for restoring your mind. So let me go ahead and show you the data that I collected here. All this data was collected on my Fitbit Inspire 2, which I wear each night to bed. And it tracks various parameters of my sleep. So you can see this is the sleep data right here. So this first column is the sleep test. A 1 means that I did complete an ice water facial that night, and a 0 means that I did not do an ice water facial. So you can see so this first column is the test. This column right here is the Fitbit sleep score that I got. This column right here is sleep latency, which is how long it took me to fall asleep that night. This column is the amount of time in percentage of my total sleep that I was awake. Okay. This is how many times I woke up during the middle of the night. This column is how much REM sleep I got in terms of percentage. This column is how much light sleep I got in terms of percentage. This column is the column that we're going to focus on. This is the deep sleep percentage that I got over the night. And this is sleep heart rate that is less than resting heart rate. So this is kind of a measurement of how restless you are during the night. Fitbit also tracks this. Okay, so these are the parameters that I tracked. As I said, there was a total of 22 nights. So there was 22 nights that I completed the study. 11 nights I did the ice water facial. And 11 nights I did not do an ice water facial. And I tried to do it where I would do one night doing an ice water facial, the next night not doing one, and then the following night doing one, and then the next night not doing one. So it's kind of like an on-off, on-off. That way, in case any other factor was affecting my deep sleep, such as what I ate during the day, it would apply to both nights. So it would cancel everything across the board, so it would be more accurate that way. Okay, so let's take a look here at this first chart right here. You can see this is my deep sleep percentage. Okay, so this first column right here, this is an aggregate of all of the nights that I did an ice water facial. Okay, and then this column right here is an aggregate of all the nights that I did not do an ice water facial. So you can see right off the bat, I added some data labels here. You can see that on average, for every night that I did an ice water facial, my deep sleep percentage was 17.1%. Okay, and then an aggregate of all the nights that I didn't do the ice water facial, you can see that my deep sleep percentage is 14.8%. Okay, so that's a difference of about 2.25%. I get 2.25% more deep sleep when I do an ice water facial versus if I don't. Okay, So that's kind of what you're seeing here. Okay, let's go to this next graph that I created right here. Okay, this is other sleep stages. Okay, so this is looking at not just the percentage of deep sleep, but the percentage of REM sleep, light sleep, and my time awake. Okay, so as you can see from this graph, let's take a look at the sleep time awake here. Okay, so you can see on the nights in this left column when I did perform an ice water facial before going to bed, the average amount of time I was awake during the night was about 11%, so it was 11.1%. When I didn't do the ice water facial, my awake time was 9.6%. So you can see that in that instance, I actually had a little bit more time awake for some reason when I did the ice water facial versus when I didn't. Okay, let's take a look at the REM sleep here. REM sleep went from 19.1 on nights when I did an ice water facial to 19.2 on nights when I didn't. Okay, so it's about the same. There's not a huge difference there. Okay, light sleep percentage 55.7% versus 56.5. So a little bit less. Not too big of a difference there. And then of course when we go down to deep sleep percentage, like we just talked about, we got 17.1 versus 14.8. Okay, so definitely the biggest increase in any sleep stage was in deep sleep. Okay, it didn't really have too much of an effect on the other sleep stages, except for my time awake for some reason. So 17.1 versus 14.8, so that's the biggest change that we see. Okay, if we keep going down, we're going to take a look at sleep latency. So sleep latency, again, is just how long it took for me to fall asleep in minutes. Okay, so you can see my sleep latency takes me about 8 minutes to fall asleep in a night when I do an ice water facial versus about 10 minutes on nights when I don't. So about shave off about 2 minutes in my sleep on average. Okay, and then dark maroon color right here. This represents how many times I woke up during the night. I tend to wake up a lot during the night. So 24 times on average when I do the ice water facial, 26 when I don't. Okay, so not too much of a difference there. And then finally, we're going to talk about the heart rate under the resting heart rate. So not too much of a difference. It's 80% on the nights when I do the facial, 81% the nights when I don't. So nothing crazy there. Okay, let's take a look at some of these statistics over here. As you can see in these cells right here, I've compiled some statistics. So total nights of the study, 22. Total nights when I did the ice water facial was 11. Total nights when I didn't was 11. Average percent difference in deep sleep was 2.25% improvement when I did the facial. Okay, in terms of minutes, this is another way to kind of interpret data. Whenever you have like percentages like this, I find that it's usually better to kind of like calculate it in terms of actual minutes because it's just more tangible that way. You can see this 2.25%, I sleep on average about 8 hours a night. So this, in terms of minutes, that's about 10.8 minutes. Okay, so I save 10.8 minutes, or I add 10.8 minutes to my deep sleep when I do a cold ice water facial. Okay, so yeah, so I'll talk about the interpretation in just a second. Pearson's R value, the coefficient of determination, is 0.35. Anything over like 0.3 is what you might consider like a weak correlation. So it's definitely there. There's definitely a correlation. It's not super strong, 0.35, but it's not too bad. R squared, this number tells you how much the variation in your deep sleep can be explained by the variation in whether or not you do an ice water facial. Okay, so basically what this number is telling me is 12%, 0.12, so 12% of the amount of deep sleep that I get can be attributed to whether or not I did an ice water facial before going to bed. So I find that this value is pretty significant. I like that statistic, okay? Then the p-value is 0.005. Anything that's under 0.05 is statistically significant. So one way that you could interpret this data is there's a 0.5% chance that the variation that I see in my deep sleep is caused by random factors versus the ice water facial. Okay, so that's good. All right, so now let's talk about whether or not this is meaningful, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the interpretation. So, especially when I'm looking at this kind of stuff, am I going to keep doing this? Is the question that I'm going to ask myself. I definitely think after doing this study, I'm definitely intrigued. It's definitely interesting to see that the deep sleep increases, the percentage increases. It's not as much as I was hoping for, but still, it's not bad. When you consider about 11 minutes increase in deep sleep, that's not too bad. And I will say that some nights, I definitely noticed that it was higher than 2.25%. Some nights it was 5%. Some nights it was like 1%. But there was no night where I noticed that it was less than. I think there's only one night where it was a little bit less than it would have been if I hadn't done the ice water facial. So that's something to keep in mind. I'll definitely continue going forward doing some type of cold thermogenesis. I'm probably going to experiment with some different ones and see if there's any that are better. Now, let me talk a little bit, in case you're interested in doing this, let me tell you how I did the cold ice water facial. So all you have to do is you just take a bowl of water, you fill it up with cold tap water to 3.5 liters. Okay, so 3.5 liters of cold tap water in a large bowl. And then what I did is I added about 22 ice cubes. Okay, so 22 ice cubes. What you want is you want it to be a little bit uncomfortable. So you want it to be not so cold that it hurts and is like intolerable, but you definitely want it cold enough to be like right on the threshold of what you can handle. Yeah, and then all you do is you just stir in the ice water, submerge your face for 5 minutes is what I did. So 5 minutes, and you just come up for air when you need to. Just take a breath, and then you go back down again. And then when the 5 minutes are up, you just kind of pat dry your face, and then I just went right to bed after that. And I didn't change anything else about my routine. So the only thing that I changed across the days was whether or not I did this ice water facial. Okay. Yeah. So the takeaway that I want you to, so remember, this is an N of 1 experiment, right? This is an experiment that I did on myself. I can guarantee you that your results are going to be different than mine. And the goal of this video isn't for you to decide whether or not to do the ice water facial. The goal for me would be that you would go out, you would buy your own Fitbit, and that you would start tracking your own data and you would do your own experiments. That's the take-home message right there, is you need to start self-experimenting. You need to start tracking your own data, because at the end of the day, you're a unique individual. And for you, you might get a 20% increase in your deep sleep, whereas for me, I got a 2, or it might hurt your sleep for some reason. I don't I don't know why it would, but you know, so the goal at the end of the day is for you to do your own experiments. Okay. And yeah, so go ahead and like this video if you did, and comment below on whether you've noticed that a form of like cold thermogenesis helps your sleep and your deep sleep especially. I'd definitely love to hear it and see what your thoughts are. Yeah, and any results from tests that you've done, go ahead and post those in the comments. And thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next video.